Next podcast with Chris and Todd.
All right. Well, hey, welcome back to the next podcast. And as always, we love it. We love being able to share and just check in with you, communicate some stuff, talk about some different things that really are at our heart or things that, man, God is kind of impressing on us. So obviously the one and only Todd Lynch, man.
Yep.
I feel like there should be like maybe we can get Milton to put that in like do 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 do.
I don't know if we need
I don't
that.
know.
That
I don't know.
seems a little.
Just for you.
I
Just
think for you it'd be great.
Yeah.
Let's do that for you.
Yeah,
The one
like-
and only Chris Wood.
When Chris starts talking, you start to like,
Yeah.
burr, 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 burr. Anyway, no, but if you enjoy it, if you have been challenged by something or you think, hey, I know somebody that might be encouraged by this or be challenged by this, we'd love for you to share it, let people know about it. And yeah, we'll go from there. So,
I mean, our latest episode was kind of about accountability and
confession.
and confession. And I go, that might be worth sharing with somebody and be like, hey, do you want to go after this together? Like, you know.
Yeah. Don't send it to somebody. Hey, did you want to confess about that?
I think it's time you
yeah.
you did something.
No, our podcast is not to be used as a tool
Or a weapon.
or a weapon. Do not weaponize it. Anyway,
Do not.
no, but we just, man, one of the things that I think we really are doing a good job at in our culture today is attempting to find fault
In everything.
in everything. And we're quick to point it out. We're quick to let people know, hey, I don't want to come across like mean or frustrated, but I'd really like you to know how much this makes me mad. And man, there are some times lately that the thoughts that go in my head are, I don't know if anybody really cares about that. And because I think we do. We believe that what we're finding fault in and what we're trying to point out is going to be somehow beneficial. And I think we might be missing the mark a little bit when it comes to finding fault. It's not just a free range invitation to point out everything that frustrates us, because I think then it loses its effectiveness and then it loses its ability to get across what we really would like to get across, because it just becomes noise.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to really hear the fault that you see in me if you don't care about me. So that becomes first point.
That'll be our next episode,
Yeah.
Finding Fault with Todd Lynch.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
But I go, that's the thing. I was like, I will listen to the person who I feel like believes the best in me, but they're giving me some good like insight into that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more the problem. Like, we love sharing our, here's how I think you can make it better,
Yep.
without even first communicating that we care about them.
Yes, absolutely.
And so starting there would be step one of like, if you're going to go be critical, ask yourself before you do it, have I even created an environment with this person that they would actually think I care about them? If not, then what are we doing here?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
I mean, you and I, we both love sports. We love coaches.
Yep.
Some of these coaches can be straight up. I mean, they're harsh. They can be
Yep,
critical.
absolutely.
But they've built the relationship with that
Yep,
player, and
yep.
the player hears it. And so I think that's part of it. And I think about parents, how you're interacting with your son or daughter's coaches. Think
Yep.
about how you're interacting with people at your church or pastors. Think about how you're interacting with the leaders within your community, all these kind of things, to where you're like, do you even know them?
Yeah.
But you're going to be critical of them. Now, here's, I feel like, the tension of all this.
Okay.
Like, you've got finding fault, which I go, be careful with, because let's try to care for some.
Yes.
But there's also a part to where you do have to navigate being critical
Yes.
and navigating that in the right way. Because I go, the Bible even speaks to us, especially as Christians,
Yeah.
we are supposed to be critical and judging each other in some senses.
Yeah.
The Christian that says, you can't judge me, I go, you haven't read the scriptures.
Yeah.
Then, because
Yeah.
we just talked about how God mentions you need accountability in your life. So
Mm-hmm.
that means you should have another brother or sister in your life going, hey, you're off today. I feel like this is a problem.
Yeah.
Or, you shouldn't be doing that. If you can't find room in that, then we've got a bigger issue. But you also got to learn to do that with the right heart.
Yeah. No, I agree.
The
And-
coach may be wrong. The pastor may be
Yeah.
wrong. The leader may be wrong. But how are you going to approach that?
Well, I think that is. I think the phrase and the thought that comes out of that in your response, you've heard this 100 times. Who are you to tell me? And I think it really does go back to what you said, because so often we go to people for things. We go to people to share our opinion. We go to people to share our grievances and our frustrations. But what are we doing to come to them in moments where there's nothing other than Because if it's just all one-sided and it's just all your fault, what is there any encouragement? Is there any buildup? Or is there any true feelings of relationship there that is going to give you a groundwork for you to be able to speak this harsh next tone? Now, don't get me wrong. I think there can be moments where you have to say, listen,
what you did was not okay.
How you just did that, I really don't believe that that's the way Jesus would want you to come across.
And you don't
that.
have to know them. And
No,
sometimes the reaction we see in a store or see in this public settings, you're like, whoa, that's way out of line.
And granted, we don't know what's going on in someone's life. And that is where the beauty of grace comes in there. Like, hey, I don't know what's going on right now, but what I just saw, I don't believe that I believe that about, that's who you are. And I think how we phrase it and not get defensive. I mean, because we don't know how they might respond, but there is an important aspect of saying that, man, I love you enough to let you know that. And I think that really, hopefully they will see that genuine care, that genuine reality that you do care about the situation and what happened, and not just like you're just trying to point something out and find fault in them.
What's frustrating, I think, about humanity and all this is that we actually love watching a train crash.
Yeah.
We love watching.
I only watch figure skating for the crashes, man.
Right.
Yeah.
We love watching it. So then you got to think, like, sometimes we're pushing for or wanting to see, like, oh man, this is going to get good. Like, I just have caught be careful with that. Like, I get it. Especially like even politically right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's all those kind of things to where if that's our approach, then we're almost encouraging this unhealthy dynamic of finding fault, an unhealthy dynamic of how we should approach things or a conflict. Because it's almost we want the big reaction. We want people to be crazy emotional instead of caring for the other person. And we're like, that's how it should have been said.
Well, I think we're so far.
Come on, be careful with that.
We're so far removed from a caring mentality, I think, right now, right? Like that we are. We're just, like you said, we're just thriving on that sense of, okay, this could really blow up and get really interesting, and I want to see how it plays out, rather than being like, okay, what are we trying to model as the body of Christ? What are we wanting to see come across that is going to show a world that we believe desperately needs to see Jesus? Like, man, how can we begin to live and move and operate in such a way that begins to be more proactive in such a loving way that allows us to be able to speak into one another's lives? Because you're right, we have to be willing to receive it. And you go back to, again, like we just talked about, confession and accountability. I mean, we just don't believe the best. Somebody's got an angle. Whether politically or life, everybody's got an angle. They're just trying to get in there and trying to make themselves look good.
Everybody has an agenda.
That's right. Everybody's trying to make themselves look good. But man, how do we go about really helping one another look better than I believe we're putting off right now?
And I think that's what we see in the news world. That's what we see. But I think a majority of the world doesn't always have these secret agendas.
No.
I know someone might argue with me. I think some people are just trying to figure out life. Yeah. And they're going, well, this makes sense. I think this is right. But all we hear are the extreme pieces on the different sides of this, instead of actually hearing like, wait, how do we make this work in between here?
Yep.
And I understand, me being a pastor, being a Christian, there's a part of it that I go, I think Jesus is the way. And there's not. Yep. I don't believe anything else. Yeah. And you can say, like, well, see, you're being extreme there. And I go, well, at some point, we are all going to have our beliefs in some of this.
Absolutely.
And we're going to find fault in each other's beliefs. But I go, Jesus spent his time here arguing with the religious leaders.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was pointing out the fault in what they were doing.
Yeah.
Did they like it? No. Did some of them listen to him? Yeah.
Yeah.
But you'd see how he treated the Pharisees and Sadducees that way. But that's not necessarily how he would treat the person who's begging for help.
No, I would agree.
Like there was a very different approach there. And so that's the part I think as Christians we've got to learn to, like, how do we do this in a way that's, yes, I could pick on the person who's homeless and struggling and find all the faults in their thing, but yet that's not usually Jesus' problem. He's like, man, that person needs help.
Yep.
Let's start there. But the pastor who's way out of line in what he's saying, we're scared to go tell them,
Yeah.
hey, you probably stepped too far on this. But some of that can be because the pastor doesn't want to listen, or there could be so much there.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the part that I'm going, and I know it's not the best analogy maybe, but I'm just trying to think through. I'm like, there's just an approach that Jesus had that I really appreciated when he was finding fault in people, judging the people around him, but also making sure that, hey, he cared. And sometimes it was first about, let's make sure the needs met, and then.
Well, that is exactly it. Like, and I know the woman at the well gets brought up all the time, but I mean, it's so true. Like, listen, he met the need of that moment in that moment. Yeah, you're not living with your husband, and you've had multiple ones. Okay. And he didn't just say, you got to stop that right now, quit it. And
he pointed out the fault.
Yeah.
But in a very loving
way. And then, it's like, hey,
I mean, it'd be great if we could, know the faults ahead of time before somebody.
Yeah, I know.
That would give us a lot of authority in somebody's life.
Oh, but how powerful it was because he met her the way that he did, because he engaged the need and the heart of the issue. She felt seen like she had never been seen before, valued and connected with by someone in authority, because everyone else that had been in authority had only pointed out how she was screwing up and how she was making everybody, including herself, look bad. And what was her response? Her response was, come and meet a man who told me everything I ever did, and he still wanted to talk to me.
Yep.
And how powerful that is, that we shut down doors, and maybe we made a turn a little bit here, but we shut down opportunities for conversation, for real sharing about what we believe, why we believe it, and how Jesus makes a difference and an impact in our lives, because we aren't willing to make the turn in the conversation from you're messing up, and that's a big problem, to, hey, I don't know what's been going on and how you get to the point here, but I love you and I care about you.
I think what is two stories you could put together and be like, so you got the woman at the well, but then the woman who's caught in adultery. Mm-hmm. So put yourself as the woman at the well, and then now you're sitting on the authority side. You know this woman is caught in adultery. They're bringing her out, this. What would you now do in that? Are you picking up the stone? Are you the one? Mm-hmm. And this is where it's going like, okay. And it's not that Jesus in that moment with the woman caught in adultery went, hey, everything you did was okay.
Yep. No.
But what he was coaching in that is like, wow, we are really quick to find fault in this person.
Yep.
And we want to make sure justice is done for this person.
Sure.
And yet God is like, hey, whoa.
Yeah.
There's a way to navigate this. There is grace and truth being shared at the same time. And so, but I think too often is we either land way too far in the truth and no grace, or it's all grace and no truth. And so it's learning how to do that well. Because if we do it well, people will go, that person met me where I was at, listened to me, and helped me navigate it. But that's coming from a healthy person who can do that. If they're not willing to listen to you, as you kind of point out this fault, then that's where it's.
Yeah, for some reason we want to make sure they really understand how bad they've been, right? Like,
I don't know if they need help in that.
Yeah, and Jesus says that to the woman called to, well, who condemns you?
Argue is like, that's not our role.
Yeah, it's not.
We are not called to judge. We are not called, but we are called to be like, hey, that's wrong.
Yeah. Now,
how they take that and what they do with that is between them and the Lord.
Yeah. And that is, and I think that's a great reminder that work has to take place between them and the Lord, not you and them. And then if the Lord wants to intervene, that's great. No, that's
because that's ultimately what God is like. You people here are not the authority when it comes to this in your life. You don't have the ability to carry out the punishment that should happen.
Yep.
And so, and I know that gets messy because it's like, well, are you saying all the whole prison system should be undone? Like, no, God's going to govern that. God's going to take care of that. He'll give people wisdom and all of that. So we have to govern ourselves in some way. He gave us the authority to do it. But it's complicated.
Yeah.
That's, I think, why we had to have this. It's just complicated.
It is.
And you've got to learn how to find fault in a healthy way, but also, like you alluded to, do it from a heart of you believe the best in people and you want what's best for them. So some of this is out of love for that person, not, and this is what it comes down to. Check your motives. And
Yep, I would agree. And I
like, are
think
you finding fault just to make yourself feel better? Are you finding fault because you really want this person to be torn down?
yeah.
Those are not reasons to find fault.
No, I would agree. And I just think it's so vitally important. Like, I think it starts with your heart and your heart, like with your relationship with Christ. Like, man, is there a softening that needs to take place? Is there something that needs to be checked in my spirit? Have I been going after things that are his job? And what do I need to be faithful to? And how can I be the best conveyor of truth that you allow me to have moments in?
I think the best litmus test of this in your life is, do you allow God to point out the faults in you?
Yep.
Because if you can't allow God to do that, or you really struggle with that, then it's really going to be hard for you to find faults in other people and do it in a healthy way. Because it should come from a heart of like, well, God has saved me and helped me with my faults.
Yep.
I'm just trying to help you see yours and let you and God navigate it. And I go, I feel like that's true. Like, if you can't forgive somebody, well, then have you really experienced God's forgiveness for you? If you can't love somebody, well, really have you experienced God's love for you? Like that, it is this, as God said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and then love your neighbor. He's like, those two are combined. Those two are working together. And I would say the third component of that is you loving yourself. And that's how this all works. And so for you to be able to find fault in a healthy way is going, well, do I take when God gives me fault, or when other people tell me my faults? Too often I see our reaction is typically to blow up at that person.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't tell me. Yeah, who are you? Yeah, again, back to that statement. Who are you to tell me? Like, you deal with you, and I'll deal with me.
And I've learned, and it's taken time. Like, regardless of where the criticism is coming from, I'm not saying that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But what they're saying still may be true.
Yeah.
And so God may be using them. There's plenty of examples in the Bible where he used somebody that you'd be like, not the best person, but they were giving the exact criticism that person needed.
That was like one of the early on in ministry. I had every now and then would have moments of somebody telling me like, hey, these are all the things. And I would find that some of it was true and some of it was not. And we have to be discerning. And this is the self-awareness that you're speaking of. Find truth where there's truth. You can let some of that other stuff go. But if there's truth in there and you're unwilling to hear and listen to truth, there is a big issue there. And there is a stumbling block that if it is not dealt with, will take you down a path that will be dangerous in your relationship, because like Todd just shared, you're unwilling to take criticism from somebody. And that is a dangerous place to be.
One of the things I had to do is to learn to take criticism and bring it before the Lord. Didn't matter who said it. It's like, God, is this true? Because sometimes I go, I want God, you throw a mirror in front of me and let me know. I think the Bible functions as that, but also just his ability to speak to you, and he'll use other people, and you got to put that in front of yourself and go, God, is this true? And if it's a no, then you go, okay, that's where that's at. But if it's a yes, then you go, okay, God, help me to deal with it.
Absolutely. I think that's good. I think that's a good place to end too. Like, are you willing to deal? Are you willing to bring it to God and saying, okay, God, work in my heart. Help me see, and help me listen.
Take that. Okay, God, I'm about ready to give this fault to someone. I'm about ready to say this. Am I doing this with a pure heart, a loving heart? Like both and. Like you're doing this as like, as you hear it, you're taking it before yourself, but also going, God, I'm about ready to point this out to somebody. Yeah. Am I doing this with a heart that's honoring? That's
always great wisdom right there, right? Like, have you prayed about it? Yep. Have you taken a moment to give it to God and ask his wisdom? So awesome.
Well, I hope this was helpful. I know this is not an easy thing to navigate. No. None of us love dealing with criticism, but it's part of life.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, we'll see you next time.